we will reaffirm the crystal clear warning that President Biden issued yesterday to any adversary, state or non-state, thinking of taking advantage of the current crisis to attack Israel. Don't. The United States has Israel's back.
Thank President Biden, and thank you to the American people for your incredible support for Israel in our war against the barbarians of Hamas.
Secretary Blinken meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. The conflict entering a sixth day as Israel targets Hamas's political and military leaders in Gaza. A potential ground invasion not yet decided upon by the emergency unity government. Iran's foreign minister denying his country's involvement in the attacks, calling them, quote, spontaneous and entirely Palestinian. Let's get to our team coverage. Bloomberg's Crook in Tel Aviv, Annmarie here in New York. Ollie, what's the latest?
Yeah, so John, as you mentioned, there's a unity government, new government really here established in Israel. And really, this is a wartime government. They're tabling all other business. Everyone is staying to their posts. Everything is going to continue this way. And it's a government that brings in the opposition as well. All of this fragmentation that we've seen in Israeli politics has been suspended in the name of this war. In terms of the strikes and what we've seen over the last 24 hours, we've seen extensive striking in Gaza. We've seen the death toll there rise to over 1,200 people. Electricity, food, water, all in short supply there. So the humanitarian situation degrading. We have a military base that has been established on the border of Gaza with tens of thousands of soldiers. We've heard from the Israeli Defense Forces that there are up to 300,000 soldiers that are also nearby. All of this as we anticipate what will be potentially a land invasion. As you mentioned, this has not yet been decided by the government, but the military is ready to move in case they do decide to go.
Annmarie, let's talk about what's next for America and this White House. What are you expecting?
There's going to be more show of support, Jonathan. What you heard from Secretary Blinken today was really a follow-on of the emphatic support we heard from Biden, his last two speeches, talking about the cruelty and how barbaric this was of Hamas and the massacre that occurred over the weekend. Secretary Blinken once again saying there to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, the United States has your back. So you're going to continue to see that support. But I would also say, Jonathan, there was a dual approach to what Secretary Blinken said today. He also says how Israel does this matters. And he says we democracies need to make sure we hold ourselves to those standards, not the standards that terrorists hold themselves to.
Given the nature of the kind of ground invasion that could take place, Annmarie, it could be a tragic loss of life for weeks and maybe even months.
Absolutely, especially given what we know in the history of how Hamas operates. They use individuals, they use civilians, potentially these hostages, Jonathan. They will use them as shields to try to fight back against the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, especially given the landscape of Gaza. This is a immensely dense strip of land. There's a number of high-rises here. There's tunnels. And the population, if you look at the data behind the Gaza Strip, is 2 million people, and about 40% are under the age of 15. So there's an incredible, it can be incredibly difficult as the IDF goes in, if they do this land invasion, going house to house. They're going to have to be incredibly careful to make sure that they do not hit civilian lives.